do veterans get less help than the general public when it comes to their disability cases? I was going to do a video about, do you need a diagnosis for a VA disability case? Because I often get that question from people, and you see denials where people filed, didn't have a diagnosis, and of course, it often gets kicked back. Sometimes, they'll get sent to a CMP exam for the disability case, even though there isn't a diagnosis, but typically from what I've seen, no. No, it just gets kind of kicked back. Now, let's keep this all in mind that I'm a psychologist, worked with VA disability cases for a long time, used to be a CMP examiner a long time ago, spent 19 years as an in-house reviewer on Social Security disability cases, and I've worked with other disability programs as well, but not an accredited rep, not an attorney, not a policy guru, so take it all with a grain of salt, of course. But when it comes to a VA disability case, typically when you file, it's a good idea to have a diagnosis already in the records. So I'm going to compare just a little bit in terms of VA disability, Social Security disability, and the cable company. But hilariously, years ago when I had voice over IP, a cable phone, right? You remember that was. You may still have it, but I got rid of the home phone a long time ago. But one time the cable company was having issues like the cable company does, or the modem or whatever, right? And of course, the cable they were coming to fix the cable, which includes the cable phone. And the person who was coming to fix the phone called our phone number that was the cable phone number. We, of course, didn't answer, and so they didn't come because we never answered the phone, even though they were coming to fix the phone. Well, it makes me think of like VA disability cases sometimes where a veteran will say, I need help with these PTSD symptoms. I need help with this depression, and I can't afford to get treatment, so I'm filing for this so I can try to get treatment. And then the VA calls them on their broken cable phone and says, no diagnosis, right? And interestingly, so they may say, you haven't met your duty to assist. Interestingly, there's differences in terms of how government disability programs approach this. So when I see it often enough in a VA disability case, and of course this is all my impressions of what I see. I'm not going to say policy or anything, but, very often, if a veteran were to file a VA disability case and they say, I am having all these PTSD symptoms, I can't afford treatment, that kind of thing, there's no diagnosis in the records, the VA will come back and say, you're denied because there's no diagnosis in the records. And they may not send them to a CMP exam, right? There's a chance they could, but it's often that they don't, right? But from my experience with Social Security disability, any old John Q. Public files for Social Security disability with no diagnosis, right? And they say, I'm having these PTSD symptoms or depression, anxiety, whatever, right? The VA, Social Security will view their sort of duty to assist differently and say, okay, let's send them to a CE exam, consultation examination. They call them CEs generally when it comes to Social Security. And that they'll view now, again, not always, but typically they'll see their duty to assist as sending that person to an exam to see, let's evaluate these symptoms, right? It's also interesting that not only does Social Security send people for exams when they seem to be needed, they have in-house healthcare professionals, in-house physicians, in-house psychologists who will actually review all of the medical evidence. Whereas for VA, my impression is when all that records come in and the no diagnosis conclusion without an exam is being made, that isn't by a healthcare professional. And amusingly, I've seen plenty of times where VA raters, the adjudicator, if you will, said there was no diagnosis when there were clearly diagnoses right there in the file. You know, I saw that they're there. So they were missed, but it is what it is. You know, unfortunately, it happens a little too often. So, you know, what does the cable company and the VA have in common? It's a terrible thing to say. I mean, the VA does lots of great things, of course, but sometimes when it comes to interpreting the duty to assist, interpreting how to help veterans, and should you have a diagnosis? Well, a lot of times when it comes to the VA, you know, it makes sense to, if you can get in and see a primary care doctor, anybody else, and have a diagnosis in file before you file for a disability claim, it probably makes sense. Even though other programs might, like Social Security, might interpret the duty to assist differently. And if you say, I'm having all these symptoms, they're probably going to try to help out by sending you to an exam at least, right? But that's my quick one for today. Thanks again. Hey, you made it to the end of the video. Thank you. Here's the part where I'm supposed to beg you to click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and perhaps post a comment. But also, you can subscribe to my free email newsletter where I talk about my practice and my thoughts on things related to VA disability claims. You can subscribe to that on my website, nexusletters.com. And if a Nexus letter from a psychologist is something you or someone you know needs, you can get one from me at nexusletters.com. Thanks again. Stay tuned for more videos about the cable company, or at least VA disability and Social Security disability. Thanks.